Hello and welcome back to Barn Find Aerospace. You may remember all the way back in episode 1, we had the fuselage frame on a rotisserie. Made it a whole lot easier to paint. Now we're getting to some jobs where being able to rotate the wing will make things easier. But we need to modify the rotisserie before we can bolt the wings to it. Our new rotisserie parts are made out of angle iron and box section tube, with nuts welded on and handles welded onto the bolts, so you don't have to go hunting for a wrench every time. And after the cutting and welding, we wound up with this odd-looking collection of new parts. There is a bit of awkwardness taking the wing off the rack and mounting it on the rotisserie, but not too awful much. Using these box section sleeves lets us slide the whole thing back and forth so we can balance the wing somewhere in the neighborhood of the axis it rotates on. And the upshot of all that is now we can roll the ring around on the floor, rotate it lengthwise, and slide it up and down. And this will make some of our upcoming wing jobs a lot easier. The Bearhawk's wings are skinned with metal, but the fuselage and control surfaces are wrapped in fabric. This whole fabric wrapping process is new to us, so Dad and daughter went to the EAA fabric workshop to learn how it's done. Once you got the fabric on, you use an iron to shrink it up, tight as a drum head. You can also use the iron to make it shrink to fit around curves. The EAA found a real nice barn full of all different kinds of planes to practice working on. Although Dad found this sign and whatever's leaking out from under it kinda disturbing. Once the fabric's in place, it's got to be treated. In the old days, they did this with nitrocellulose dope, but now they've got these fancy modern chemicals that don't give you brain damage or spontaneously combust, so that's progress. Next step is sewing the fabric down to the airframe underneath. This is what keeps it from flapping it around at 150 knots. Yeah, I know that does sound a little sketchy, but World War II Corsairs had fabric-covered control surfaces and they flew at 400 knots. It's a little tricky at first, trying to guess where your needle's going to come out, but daughter seems to have got the hang of it. You got to learn a special knot to finish off your stitches so they don't come undone. Daughter seems to have caught on to that pretty good too. Then finally you glue more fabric down on top of your stitches. We've still got another wing to finish before we even get to this fabric wrapping, but this was a good chance to go ahead and learn what we're going to be doing. Another project we've been working on is the hardware for the wing support struts. Here's what they look like in the original Bearhawk plans. We start out in CAD, the virtual barn, with a flat plan, then extrude it out to the thickness we need. Then we got to cut away the side profile. How'd that happen? Well, we started out with a drawing of the cutout, then told the invisible CAD genie, cut all this stuff off, and voila, we got our part. Then we do the same thing for the hardware that goes on the other end. Next, you got to get these parts out of the virtual barn and into real life. Typically, the next step is to start up a CAM program and saturate the computer with potty language until you get a set of cutting instructions for the CNC mill. But with Pop semi-retiring to an advisory role, we just don't have that same master's level of potty language, so we tried the alternative. First, you go to an online machining service and upload your CAD parts. There's a little bit of potty language when you see the price quote, but that's within our amateur scope of inappropriate verbiage. Then comes the critical step, continue to checkout. And then you wait.
2,000 years later, 6.5 hours later, a few inches later, day 2, day 3, day 4, a few moments later.
Until finally, a box comes in the mail. Then, carefully using a box cutter, you open up the box and the packaging inside layer by layer until you get down to the shiny stuff. Now we check the fit, which is just about perfect. And that's CAD-CAM the easy way. Just for fun, try and figure out where we're going with this. We start off with an aluminum tube in the mill, cutting a slot in it. Next, we soak 2 different kinds of plastic balls in avgas for a couple weeks to make sure they don't melt. Then we go to this sketchy looking arrangement with a battery charger hooked up to the aluminum tubes and a lead strip dunked in a beaker of battery acid. When you turn the power on, the lead strip busts out in bubbles all over. Then we soak the tubes in this hot dye. Then put the clear tubes inside the aluminum tubes, put a plastic ball inside of that, and stick hose fuel fittings on the ends. If you figured out we were making fuel level gauges, you did pretty good. These get stuck on the sides of the fuel tanks where you can see them from inside the cockpit, and the little ball tells you how full or empty the tanks are. But there's just one thing. Did you notice when we tested the plastic balls in the avgas, they were sitting at the bottom of the jar? Yeah, for this to work, we're going to need a float ball that floats. So how'd we get into all this? Well, it's a long, stupid exercise in false economy. $8.03 seemed kind of salty for the little plastic balls they use in Piper Cub fuel gauges. So we went shopping for plastic balls from those slow boat Asian vendors. But their balls were all white. We weren't sure they'd be visible against the bare aluminum. So we got into a home anodizing project to darken the tubes, before we realized that the fuel gauge balls that don't float aren't going to work. So we're going to wind up paying the $8.03 anyway, plus all the money we wasted trying not to. Building an airplane isn't cheap, and it especially isn't cheap when you try and save money. Somewhat less unproductively, Dad's been working on the padded steel straps that hold the fuel tanks in place. This job mostly consists of putting the tanks in, then taking them out again, then putting them back in, over and over. Each strap has one of these adjuster contraptions, so you can draw them up tight and hold the tank snug in place. We're going to need some way to get fuel into the tanks, so that's got us into this fuel filler caps project. We got these nice looking caps already marked for drilling screw holes. But on our plane there's a gap between the top of the tanks and the wing skin. So we needed flanges to fill that space and raise the caps up level. We started the flanges back in the virtual barn and designed in holes to match the caps. But out in real life, the laser cutting people can't make holes this small through something this thick, so we're set for some quality time with the drill press. There's drilling holes in the caps, and then match drilling the flanges, and then tapping the flanges for threads, and countersinking the caps so the screws will sit flush. We even sped up 32 times. It's kind of dull and repetitive, but when it's all done, we've got our caps and flanges all together. And yes, that is an aviation grade scrap of 2x6. Next step will be welding the flanges to the tanks, so Dad's setting up to practice welding aluminum of dissimilar thicknesses. So far on Barn Find Aerospace, we've had appearances, or at least mentions, of Uncle Ray and Uncle Arthur. The other day, we had a surprise visit from Uncle Eric, who flew into town and is not quite a Bearhawk. True to its name, the Not Quite a Bearhawk is about the same size as the plane we're building, same number of seats, same heavy-duty design concept, same big motor, and being a tail dragger, it's flown by the same kind of super cool pilots. Uncle Eric does have modern avionics in his plane, which, if you look real close, is a subtle difference from the instruments Dad's used to flying with. Even though we're building the Bearhawk in a barn, we figure we'll probably want to set it up with some of these newfangled bells and whistles. It was fun and inspiring in the middle of all these tedious and frustrating airplane building jobs to fly around in the Not Quite a Bearhawk and get a sneak preview of what we're working towards. And of course, it's helpful to get some education about what you can put in a plane if it's newer than 1948. But Uncle Eric's greatest aviation accomplishment, at least in the minds of equestrian daughter and mechanical daughter, was a different surprise visit about 8-10 years ago.
If you look out to the left, you can see the runway. That's where we took off from.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're gonna roll.
That was fun.
How do you feel? How was that?
Good.
You don't feel sick or anything?
No. I should do it again.
You want to do it again? We're going to do what we call a hammerhead. I'm going to pull the nose up where it gets slow, and then I'm just going to kind of let the nose fall down to the left. It's not going to be anything aggressive. It'll be nice and smooth and easy. And as we get slow, now I'm just going to bring the nose around to the right. And now we're putting it down to the ground, and now we'll just kind of...
That was fun. This is so fun.
Yeah. We're going to start the loop, and you're going to start feeling heavier now.
Oh. I feel like I'm 100 pounds.
And now we're going to come up the bottom side, and you're going to start getting heavier again.
Oh.
And now you'll start getting back to normal. How was that?
Can we do that again?
Yeah, we can do that again. You ready now?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do another one. There we go. You're going to start getting heavier in your seat. Now you're going to start getting lighter in the seat as we go over the top. That's just me pulling the power back so we don't keep going too fast. And now you're going to start getting heavier in the seat.
My head feels 100 pounds.
And now we're back to normal.
You know how to drive when you're doing that?
It takes some practice. You get used to it.
Have you ever crashed a plane before?
I have not crashed a plane before. I prefer not to.
Thanks, Uncle Eric.